Okay, so let's talk about the games. And when I say games, I really just mean instances where people are interacting with each other. So it can't just be one person. At least two people, two or more people, are making decisions and interacting with each other in such a way that their payoffs, their well being, is interdependent. In other words, I'm doing something that affects your payoff and mine. You're doing something which affects your payoff and mine. When economists talk about games, that's really what they're talking about. Games that have sort of interdependent payoffs based on our actions. Okay, and I had you look at a number of these games, including the ultimatum game, the dictator game, the gift exchange game, the trust game, public good games. That's 5 games. And they all have something in common, and that is they were designed to test certain hypotheses, just to test certain assumptions about the way people make decisions. And so these games are famous because they were designed by some clever economists to really sort of pinpoint the human behavior that they're looking at. They don't want to look at everything. They don't want to look at, what kind of who you're going to vote for president, or what kind of jobs you're going to take, what college you go to. There's a lot that goes on in your life. Who you should marry, how many kids are you going to have? All of this extra baggage is not present in these games. It's just boiled down to one really simple decision, and that's by design. Often it's because they want to see what you do in this really simplified environment and compare it to how people behave in a similar but not exactly the same environment. So let's talk about them. See what you guys thought. If you're willing to discuss with me, I'd appreciate it. But first one, let's talk about the ultimatum game and the dictator game. What did you guys think about this? Can I have like maybe some volunteers to play a pseudo game for not for real money, but just like is anybody willing to play the ultimatum game for me? Just it's hypothetical. I'm sorry. Peter will play. You were the first one to speak up, Peter. So I'll let you be you will be the first player in the ultimatum game. Who will be the second player? Please. Kevin, thank you. Peter and Kevin. You get some brownie points from me. Excuse me. For being willing to participate. Okay, so in the ultimatum game, Browns? Did you mean brownies? You mean the Cleveland Browns? No, he meant brownies. Okay. The Cleveland Browns got beaten badly by the Steelers, unfortunately. Okay, let's talk about the ultimatum game. You should have already watched my videos, so you know how it's played. You know what it is. But in case some of you are bad and didn't watch the videos, Peter, let's say, has $10. Has $10 that he will allocate to himself and Kevin, and that's it. $10. He's going to split the $10 any way he wants to. And then Kevin will listen to this offer and either reject it or accept it. If Kevin accepts, then both people walk away with their dollars that they say. If Kevin rejects, then nobody gets anything. They both get zero. So let's have an offer for Peter. You have to make it publicly. We'll all see what you offered. What are you going to do, Peter? $10. Allocate $10. He goes 5-5. Kevin, what do? You accept? All right, they both get $5. Congratulations. Not a bad outcome, right? Good. We brothers now. 100 underlined. I know vaguely what that means. I'm not that old. Okay, so let's now talk hypotheticals. Peter gave 5. Gosh, you know what I would love to do is I would love to jump ahead to the the dictator game. The dictator game is very, very similar. The only difference is Kevin doesn't have a choice. You just have to accept it. Let's play the dictator game, but with the same two people in the same roles. Sorry, Kevin. All right, Peter, you get to split $10 between yourself and Kevin, and he has to accept it. Now choose how to allocate these $10, Peter. Still 5-5. No, he's still 5-5. Okay, so Peter is a sweetie. He represents a person that is how would we describe Peter? Nice. He's a nice guy. There's a lot of ways to can. Actually, let's ask him. Why did you split it 50-50 both times, Peter? You say you're a sweetie. Explain. What does it mean to be a sweetie?
Since it's just being given to me, I don't really feel like it's mine, so I didn't earn it. So I'm pretty free with giving it away.
Okay, now let's think about though. Okay, so let me tell you how these experiments are generally done. There's a recruiting email that goes out to a large population, usually 100, 200 people. And the first 20 people to respond get to come into the laboratory and participate in this experiment. But you had to do something to participate. You have to take some time out of your day, walk to the laboratory, enter, sit there, listen to the instructions, and then make your decision. So actually, it's not that you're doing nothing. Let's imagine this were the case. And so you sort of think this is free money. It's would that have changed your mind?
It still probably wouldn't. I don't feel like it's fair.
Okay. Oh, fair is the right word.
Yeah.
Very good. That's what this is about, isn't it? Peter believes that the fair thing to do is to split the money evenly. Why? Because maybe Kevin and Peter are both equally, likely to have been the first player. The second player was just random. There's a philosopher Rawls, like a Rawlsian philosophy would be that you should behave as if you could find yourself to be anyone in society. And therefore, if you happen to be rich or you happen to be poor, you still need to, if you happen to be rich, you still need to think about what happens to people who happen to be poor. It could have been you. You could have been born to a poor family, but you happen to be born to a rich family. Some of this existed in the past where there was more of a caste system, perhaps. The veil of ignorance. Yes, that is what I'm referring to, Peter. Thank you. But somebody who thinks this way would say, I should split the money evenly just because there's no real reason I deserve more just because I happen to be the first player instead of the second player. Okay, so yeah, we can think of a lot of reasons. Would somebody else have behaved differently in either the dictator game or the ultimatum game? Brody is a mean guy. What would you have done, Brody? First, tell me what you would do in the ultimatum game, and then tell me what you do in the dictator game.
Okay. I would offer 9 for myself and 1 for the other person.
In the ultimatum?
In the first one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And for the dictator, it would be 10 for me. 100%.
Okay. Good. You know what? There's a lot of people that are just like you. 33%, about a third of all people would do exactly what you said. Here's the thing, Kevin. You are our designated receiver, second player. Would you have accepted the $1 to $9 split, or would you reject?
Since I'm not like part of an in-group, or part of like a small group, I'm not really it's like I'm part of a less self-reliant society. So I believe I would reject that offer.
You would reject the offer. So you would rather both people get nothing than you to get $1 and Brody to get $9.
Right. I value fairness. I value justice.
Fairness. That's exactly right. This is what you should have got from my videos too. Actually, Brody, if you watch my videos, you should know Kevin's behavior, which was to reject your offer. So let me write this. Kevin rejected a 10% offer. This is exactly what we should expect in behavior, given given the results of behavioral economics, right? What are the results of standard economics? Standard, I'm using the word standard to represent sort of neoclassical poor people. What? Uh, so standard economics, it's a bit of a straw man argument here because of course they won't necessarily have made a decision for this particular game, but we could say standard economics would predict that Kevin would accept any positive offer. So that's the key. You see the difference? Hopefully you got this from my videos. Yes. So is this, remember when we had the difference between Homo socialis and Homo economicus? Homo economicus would certainly accept any offer, even if it was unfair, even if it was only $1 out of 10. But what would Homo socialis do? Remember, this is the idea that I do what's best for the society. I'm a social person. It's actually pretty hard to tell, isn't it? Is it a more social thing to do to reject or to accept this offer? I will admit, this is an ambiguous question, because if you accept the offer, it's kind of a nice thing to do that says, well, I know you were unfair, but at least let's leave this money out here. Let's not destroy the money. Whereas if you reject the offer, it's like you're destroying the money. But you have to think about.
I believe that it would actually harm the trust if I was the recipient, right, and if I were to accept a $1 offer, then the provider, what is provider, right? Is that what it is? The other
no, proposer.
Sorry, yeah. So the proposer, I feel like they would see that recipient as like weak. They would be like, oh well, they only needed that $1. Like like let's say like I was a part of like a, I don't know, like a native tribe that was like really small and very disconnected from like even technology or like
and very social.
I mean, yeah. So and I feel like because of that, for example, because they may have accepted like, I guess, worse offers, like more unfair offers, the provider would see them as weaker, and they would be able to take advantage of them.
So let's specifically talk about whether or not that's good for society. Because actually, if in the future you're encouraging this person to be very selfish and teaching them they can get away with it, that's what's bad for society, I would imagine. So if you want to spin this as a pro-social thing to do to reject the offer, it's to say, I want to preserve the norm of fairness. If we live in a society where you're supposed to be fair, and I observe somebody who is not being fair, then it's incumbent upon me as part of the society to punish the person who's being unfair. It seems backwards that, the pro-social person may destroy money, just burn the money. But if it's punishment that's being done to enforce a norm of fairness, then it's actually, you could think of it as being pro-social. It's not the best example, but it could be an example of being pro-social. What about the dictator game? Brody, it would keep all the money in the dictator game. And there's nothing you can do about that. Kevin, you get 0 against him in the dictator game. I would say this is not, okay, so this could be fairness. If you split the money 5-5, like Peter did, maybe it's because you care about fairness and you care about it both cases. But there has to be something else that explains if there's a difference between ultimatum and dictator game. What's going on there? Why would somebody behave differently in the ultimatum game than they do in the dictator game? Maybe that's obvious.
Well, in the ultimatum game, the proposer does not have all realm of control. The recipient has that ability to like shut down the whole game.
Yeah. So why do
whereas
you give more? You give more in the ultimatum game usually, right?
I
If
would
you're
say
going
so,
to give more, you're going to give more in the ultimatum game. Why?
because you have less control.
I'm talking about the first mover. So in the first
Right.
mover in the ultimatum game, let me just tell you what the stats are. On average, people give something like 40% on average in the ultimatum game. It's high 30s, near 40% of is what's offered in the ultimatum game. In the dictator game, the average offers are like 15%, a lot lower. So why is it that people give so much more money in the ultimatum game than the dictator game? I think it's obvious. It's not quite what you said, Kevin. They're being strategic. They're being strategic because they're predicting that the other player is going to reject the offer if they don't give them enough, right? What does this say? This says that when people make decisions about um, bargaining and splitting money in a fair way, they're thinking both about what's the fair thing to do, and also they're thinking about strategically how can I uh, maximize my own money and make sure that I don't end up getting rejected. Because let me type this in the chat, right? Brody offered 10% and got rejected. If he had offered, actually, Kevin, what would you have accepted $2 out of 10?
I would have rejected that too.
How about 3 out of 10?
I would reject all the way up to 5.
Okay. Wow. So if he offered you $4 and he
Yeah, I
gets
would
to
reject.
keep 6, but you get 4, you would say, no, I don't want it.
This is a game with perfect information, right?
Perfect information.
Yeah, I would reject all of them. Yeah.
That's $4 is enough to like buy a sandwich for lunch, right? You're losing money, a significant amount of money, you might say, $4, just because you feel it's unfair, right? Can I
Yeah.
ask? Can I ask a different question now? And this is a real thing. That did you guys? If I recommend you read, there's a paper by Kammerer and Thaler that talks about the ultimatum game and dictator games. They said there are these economists who got tired of hearing about how small the stakes were, so they did it again, but with $100 stakes. $100 stakes instead of $10. So imagine you walk into a lab, somebody says you get to split $100 between yourself and another person. The other person gets to decide whether to accept or reject your offer. Sorry, I'm blowing up over here. What if Brody said, I get to keep $60, but you get to keep $40? Take it or leave it. That's your accept or reject. What would you do then?
No, I need that 10. We both got to take 50.
Wait, you would reject $40?
Absolutely. It's just $40.
Wait a
Oh.
second. Wait a second. Do you guys believe? Okay, chat. I sound like I'm a Twitch user here telling chat. Hey, chat. What do you think? What? This is little. Do you guys believe Kevin? I'm sorry, Kevin, but you don't have the $40 in front of you. If you had $40 sitting in front of you, knowing you could just all you have to do is accept the offer and you get that $40, and you reject, you get nothing. Wouldn't that be really hard? You would just maybe you don't need money. maybe $40 is nothing to you, but for some people, gosh, that's a lot of money to reject. Okay, Kevin, you bargain, but remember, you don't have there's no second round. There is no after. Right now, you're bargaining because the future, whatever. It's hypothetical. You'd rather take nothing. Okay, so can we all agree that Kevin is pretty extreme in terms of fairness? Can I ask this? Would anybody else reject $40 and take 0 instead, knowing that the other person would get 60? I literally have a statue of Lady Justice tattooed on me. You have to wonder though, how just is it to throw away $100 total money just because somebody got 60 and you only got 40 of it? That almost seems like it's an unjust thing to do because 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 the person he didn't have to offer you anything. Brody could have said, I'll keep $99 and give you one. But he didn't. He said, you can have 40. I'll take 60. And you're still rejecting it. To me, that seems very extreme. But you know what? This is the point of behavioral economics. There is no wrong answer. So Kevin's behavior, even though I personally consider it to be rather extreme, is totally acceptable. No, so Brody, you feel the way I feel that it's not that it's wrong, but that it's hard to believe. But actually, it should be allowed. And this is the point of behavioral economics: is to use realism and incorporate realism into economic models that says, here's how people really feel when they're experiencing some inequality of this sort. And what we will say in the future is that there's going to be a distribution of types. That's the best way to think about this, is to not try to say, here's how everybody behaves. The best way to think about this is to say there's a parameter out there. We could parameterize people. This is kind of a key word. Parameterize people into those that care a lot about fairness. How come I can't chat? It's just stopped. And those that don't care. And actually, it's a spectrum, isn't it? We should say that there's a spectrum of people. How badly, how annoyed are you when somebody tries to exploit their first mover advantage in so much that you're willing to reject the whole offer because they were being greedy and took more than half? Some people, would there be anybody who would accept, let's say, $1 out of 100? If somebody said, I'm going to give you $1, but I'm going to keep 99. So your choices are accept it and get $1 or reject it and get 0. Would there anybody, let's ask Brody, do you mind? Brody, let's say now you're the second player and it's a $100 ultimatum game. And somebody says, I'm going to keep $99 and only give you 1. Would you accept that or reject it?
That's like the only offer, right? There's like no negotiation.
There's no negotiation. Take it or leave it. It's either $1 or nothing.
Okay, then yeah, I'd take it.
Yeah,
it's a free dollar, sure.
Free dollar. That's how you would think about it. A free dollar, as opposed to $0. These are the extremes. What are the odds? We picked people, and those are the extremes. Because I would reject it. So here's where I differ than Brody. I think if somebody, I think I would reject it. I don't know. It depends. I might accept it, but like I said, it depends. Somebody who would accept an offer that's so unequal, 99-1, is somebody who doesn't really care about the inequality that's happening. Okay, so what? You got 99 and I got 1. 1 is better than nothing. That's one extreme, the Brody extreme. On the other extreme is the Kevin extreme that says, even if somebody's willing to give me wait, we didn't ask him about 49. Can we ask him? Kevin, all right, here's the real question here. Somebody offers you $49 out of 100. They get to keep 51. You have to accept or reject this offer. Will you let us know if you would accept or reject that offer? 49 out of 100.
That's really tough. I mean, part of me wants to like stick to like my I don't know, like being that 50-50. Because that's tough. 49 is like a bit, that's the lion's share, right? Of like.
It's 49% of the offer.
Oh my God. I think I would take that, to be honest with you. I think the 49 I would take. I wouldn't take 40. I would take 49.
So, but you're still very close to this extreme of here's how much I care about fairness, and I will punish anybody who is not being fair according to what I think is fair. Whereas Brody is on the other end of the spectrum where it says, you can be as unfair to me as you want. I'm still going to do whatever maximizes my own payoff. That's perfect. This is what behavioral economics seeks to do, is to create a theory for how all human behavior might exist in bargaining situations, all kinds of bargaining situations. The goal isn't really to study the ultimatum game. Ultimatum game is a bit wacky. You don't always, how many times in your life do you just like get presented with $10 out of nowhere, have to decide how to split it up, and somebody else can decide whether that $10 disappears? That's pretty rare. What isn't rare is a bargaining situation where you and somebody else, maybe 3-4 parties total, have to agree on how to split up whatever benefits can be accrued from this proposition. Somebody proposes doing something, maybe somebody gets a lot of the benefits of it, and another person doesn't get so much of the benefits. In standard economics, we would say that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody gets all the benefits and somebody else only gets a little, because something is better than nothing, kind of the way Brody was thinking. Whereas behavioral economics says, hold a second, if we're going to make a theory that predicts how well people, I'm sorry, not how well, what sort of outcomes we should predict. I'm getting a lot of sun here. I gotta change that. I'm not seeing much in the sun. We should factor in this spectrum, this parameterization that I talked about, of how much people care about fairness. And if the different actors have some concern about fairness, they might reject certain offers if they're not fair enough. And that actually does matter. Let's talk about a few other examples of this. Share. I'm gonna share and slideshow from current slide. You should already know this. The first study was by Guth in 1982, so actually a long time ago. This was like one of the first experimental economics papers that made a big splash. And they found that most people offer more than 30%. The actual modal offer is 50%. And small offers are rejected most of the time. And this is still true today. This study that was done in the 80s, many studies have been done afterwards. And if you read Kammerer and Thaler's paper, which summarizes the results, they say this in the very first paragraph, the introduction. And it's what I want you to know. What I want you to know about this, I'm even going to stop sharing it just so I can share the, where is it? Here I'm saying I was going to send it to you. Whoops. There. Here you go. This introduction paragraph here of Kammerer and Thaler's paper on ultimatum games. If let's see, if both players are income maximizers and the proposer knows this, the proposer should offer a penny or whatever the smallest unit of currency available is, and the responder should accept. Does that sentence make sense to you? That sentence, if both players are income maximizers, they should offer 1 penny and the other person should accept. Okay. Instead, comma, offers typically average about 30 to 40% of the total, with the 50-50 split the mode. Okay? People don't offer 1 penny. What do they offer? About 35% of the total is what's offered on average. And what happens? What does the responder do? The responder rejects, on average, anything. So here's the right way to think. It's summarized by this sentence. Offers of less than 20% are frequently rejected. That's exactly right, but let me be more precise. The rate at which offers are rejected is, of course, the smaller the offer, the more likely it is to be rejected. right? The smaller the offer, the more likely it is to be rejected. But it seems to be right about at this 20% line that it becomes more likely to be rejected. So if you give an offer less than 20%, more likely than not, it will be rejected. And this is true when you look at all the ultimatum games, a lot of them. Okay? That's what I want you to know. I want to have a quiz. I think we should have a quiz in our next class. I know it may be kind of soon, but there's a lot of stuff that we did, and I'm going to try to get through a lot of stuff today. But let's have a quiz for on Friday. I'm sorry, Wednesday, and it'll be over. Is there enough time? I think there's enough time. Assuming that we get over enough stuff today, that it'll make sense to talk about these 5 games, these 5 videos I had you watch. We will have a quiz about that on Wednesday. Unless for some reason I don't think there's enough time, and then I'll let you know that we're not having a quiz. But right now, assume that there is going to be a quiz on Wednesday. Okay. I like that they brought up this thing about the $100 ultimatum game, because here's what it turns out is it really doesn't change the rejection rates much. So we were all, stop share. We were all sort of shocked that Kevin would reject $40 out of 100, but his way of thinking about it, that's actually normal, in the sense that whatever you would do with the small game, people tend to do about the same thing when it's scaled up to the larger stakes. And that was a surprise. A lot of economists thought, well, if you increase the stakes, then people will stop rejecting offers. That's not true. There's a famous economist named Robert Aumann. He's famous for doing decision theory, which is like really hard mathematical stuff. And he was asked, how would you split $1 million in a ultimatum game? So you split $1 million and the other person can reject. And his answer was 50-50, because you don't know what kind of a lunatic you might be matched up with, right? So what Robert Aumann, the sort of one of the founding fathers of decision theory in economics, or at least the modern complicated one, is that there could be somebody out there who rejects $400,000 out of $1 million. And just in case, the safe thing to do would be to offer 500,000. Okay. What else can I tell you? Oh, where are we? Share screen. Pro-social behavior. Share. There's some neat studies that maybe weren't in any of the papers, or enable editing. No, I just want to do the slideshow. Sorry, my computer's being slow. Here we go. Like studies in the Peruvian Amazon, where actually offers are very low and they're not rejected. The point being, there are some cultural norms that affect how we behave in these sorts of things. If you're going to make a model of human behavior, it should actually have some room for adjusting based on the culture that the person lives in. The more individualistic the society, the more they accept low offers. Whereas the more social the society, the more they reject low offers. It turns out they don't receive a lot of low offers. Most of the offers are fair in the more social societies. I like this one about students, about children. There's this result here that children, when they're under kindergartners, they're okay accepting low offers. Most of the time they accept the low offer. But by the time the kids get to 6th grade, they mostly reject the low offers. What does that tell you? That once again, fairness is part of our cultural identity, that we become less willing to accept unfairness as we get older and we get more culture. What's the word when you become culturized? That's not the word. Socialized? I don't know. Okay, I like this paper by Shao and Hauser. I've met Erta Zhao and Dan Hauser. talk to them about this paper, and I have a paper that's very similar to it, so it's important to me. Let me say real quick what these guys did. They did the ultimatum game, but allowed people to send a message as well as rejecting or accepting the offer, right? Let's think about the $100 case that Kevin rejected, the $40 case that he rejected. Kevin, what if you could, hope you're still paying attention, if you could write a message to the person who only offered you 40, in addition to accepting or rejecting it, might that change what you do?
If I could write a message,
Write a message.
like in addition to rejecting.
Or accepting, yeah.
Sure, I would do it.
What would you still reject?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there's some people out there, it turns out not you, who are actually more likely to accept if I can send a message. Does that seem crazy?
What? That's so strange.
So here's the theory. These two economists, Erteshau and Dan Hauser. Dan Hauser is a George Mason. He's only like 2 hours north of here. Oh, let me check out the chat. I'm sorry. I can't see the chat. Like I'm being tempted with it. Oh, here it is. I would get some game, but still tell the pros to F off. Okay, fine. Well, let me show you the numbers. This experiment can be boiled down to these numbers. So let me explain to you these graphs. This on the x-axis are the people who, are the different offers that were given. Either a 60-40 split, like Kevin was offered, 80-20, 90-10. And in the the black line is how often it's rejected when they cannot send a message. And the white line is how often it's rejected when you can send a message. So there is not a big difference in the 60-40. There's not a big difference in the 90-10. But in the 80-20, which is sort of, remember, that's right in the middle of 20% is like right on the cusp of when people are not sure whether they should reject or accept. It's about 50% of the time people reject. That's when it made a big difference whether you could send a message. Because if you could send a message, that's this white bar, the rejection rate was actually like 20%. So people could say, that was really unfair. You shouldn't have given me so little. You know, you suck. But you still take the money. You still take the money. But at least you get to tell the other guy off, right? Whereas in the black bar, this is people who didn't have this opportunity to send a message. They ended up rejecting it more, like closer to 50% of the time. And you could argue it's because they weren't allowed to express themselves. The only way to express themselves was by rejecting the offer. You want to let the person know that you're not okay with the unfairness, you have to reject. And that's the black bar. Whereas the white bar, you want to let the person know that you don't like what they did, you think they're a jerk, you can tell them, you can say that to them in a message and still accept the money because you get the money. So I thought that was neat. That paper. Do you guys agree? That's what does the paper show? It shows that part of the reason that we reject offers that we feel are unfair is to let the other person know, to express yourself somehow that you don't like being treated unfairly. And if you have this channel, this alternate channel to let them know, then you can use that channel while still getting some of the money that you want to have. I thought that was cool. All right. Do people want to be fair or look fair? Not that much time. Did I talk about this in my video? I don't think I did. But let me just summarize this quickly. Somehow I'm running out of time. When people can give offers that aren't actually fair, but they look fair because the person they're making the offer to can't tell that there's an asymmetry, people really take advantage of that. In other words, we see a lot of things. We see people making fair offers because it's the right thing to do. We see them making fair offers because it's the strategic thing to do. But this third thing of wanting to look fair seems to also be a big reason why people behave the way they do. I think that's all I'm going to say about this paper. Even though this is my advisor, John Cagle. When I was a grad student, he was my advisor. Okay. The dictator game is really just a good way to compare the ultimatum game and what you would do otherwise. Let me show you some work that I did here. I had a game that was using the dictator game. It wasn't just studying it, but this is the kind of distributions of offers we had. A lot of very low offers that we found. It's actually true that college students are even more selfish on average than regular people. So they, about half the time, they kept all the money for themselves in our dictator game. Whereas if you compare that to an ultimatum game, you see nobody even attempting to keep all the money. It would be stupid to do that in an ultimatum game, but no one's even trying it. You definitely see people being more, giving a lot more in ultimatum games than you do in dictator games. And it's our strategic nature here that says, what if I'm matched with somebody who's going to reject my low offer? It turns out people are aware of this. People can realize, oh, I better give more to the person because otherwise my offer will be rejected. I think Brody didn't necessarily realize it when he first played. He said he would only give Kevin $1. That would have been a mistake. Offering Kevin anything less than 50% is definitely a mistake because you're going to end up with nothing. Anyways, some of the meta studies on dictator, I talked about this in my video. So I'm going to go quickly through this. If you aggregate people, not just college students, it turns out about 35% of the time, 36% people give nothing in the dictator game. People don't give anything in the dictator game, but what does that mean? That means the other 60+% of the time, people are giving something in the dictator game, even though they don't have to. There's something going on where people actually do care about the payoffs of others. Right? The prediction of standard economics is that 100% of the time, people will offer 0% to the other person in the dictator game. They have all the power, they will just keep all the money themselves. 100% of the time. Well, in reality, it's only 36% of the time. The other 64%, people are giving money they don't have to give. And the only way to explain that is that there's some concern for others. It's not just because people are worried about how they might look, because if you take away all the scrutiny, you try to make the game as anonymous as possible so that even the experimenter might not ever see, wait, well, that's not quite true. You still have to get this data somehow, but they can't tell who gave what to whom. So nobody's going to be able to look at you and say, look, I can tell how much you gave and you're a bad person for it. Even when you take away all that scrutiny, people still give money on the dictator game at close to this amount. Of course, it varies from experiment to experiment. But I think it's safe to say that the assumption of pure self-interest has been rejected for a lot of people, for most people. Okay. Which number I have? 136. Okay, here's an example of a game I'd like to mention where you have the option of leaving. Oh, I mentioned this in my video. So here it is again. 40% of the time, people actually would rather just escape the dictator game, not have to split the money, and keep almost all of the money for themselves. They're doing that because you might argue they have this impure altruism. They're altruistic, they care about the payoffs of others, and they will split money with other people when they have the opportunity. But the altruism is impure because it's not actually the thing they most want to do. They would prefer this other world where they can be selfish and keep all the money for themselves, uh, even though they know they would be altruistic if given the opportunity. So they have altruism, but it's impure. They're not choosing to do that above all other options. So I thought that was an interesting study too. Another contrast between standard economics and a result that behavioral economics shows. Actually, people are more complicated than this. They do care about others. There's some altruism there, but it might actually be impure in a lot of ways. I don't just genuinely want to help other people. I want to think of myself as the type of person who helps other people given the chance. But if I can exit the opportunity, take away my opportunity to help other people, maybe I'll do that instead, meaning that it's not pure altruism. Okay. To spare the feelings of the recipient. We could always make that argument too. I actually don't want you to feel sad that I am keeping more than half the money, so I'll just take it away. That's not a great explanation for everything though, because think about it. You could split the money half and half if you want. If you want to be perfectly altruistic person and a perfectly fair person, you could split the money. But if you're choosing to exit the dictator game and say, actually, I don't even want to play the dictator game, just give me my money and don't let the other person even know what's going to happen, to spare their feelings, it means that you're sparing their feelings from the case where you take all the money. So that's not a way to refute the case of impure altruism. All right. Yeah, there's only 5 minutes left. Hopefully you guys watched my videos about the gift exchange game and trust game. I think those were actually pretty well done videos. They explain a lot of what's going on. A lot of what I have on these slides is really just to reiterate what it said in those videos. So, I mean, unless you guys have any comments about those games in the videos, did you want to talk about anything? Okay, he's going back to exiting the dictator game. Kevin says, would people who prefer to pay higher housing in gentrified areas to push the poor and homeless people just a few miles away? It's happening in this city as we speak. I don't know if that's, I don't know. So exiting the dictator game. I guess I don't really see it. Sorry. To me, exiting the dictator game says, almost like I'm going to push the responsibility off to somebody else. I don't want to even have to deal with the inequality that I'm causing. I don't want to think of myself as being responsible for this inequality, but I am going to still try to benefit from my position. I don't know. Maybe there's a bit of what you said in there. But I actually think these people that you're describing, if they're doing it to push poor and homeless people a few miles away, then they're not hiding from it, are they? They're actually actively helping to cause it. I don't know. It's a stretch, I admit. It could be. Do studies find people who will accept an offer of zero? Generally, no. That's not a common result. I'm sure some people do. People will do all kinds of crazy things in experiments, but it's generally, no more than 5%. 5% of your population is just going to be crazy, or maybe they're like trolls. You get trolls every once in a while who are like, I'm going to do the thing the experimenter doesn't want me to do. Waluigi. Yeah, those people, I hate it when you get those types of people in experiment because it messes up your results. But the community of experimental economists have come to understand that there's a fraction of noise present in doing these experiments that comes from people's, they just don't care. I mean, you lose nothing by accepting. That's true. But if you care about fairness at all, you should probably reject the offer. You know what I mean? So an ultimatum game, if somebody offers you nothing, literally nothing, then you're not just saying, here, I'm going to be generous, and let's say you accept. They offer you nothing and you accept. You're not just giving a random person $10 for free. You're giving a person who tried to who tried to selfishly keep all of the money for themselves $10 for free. So, you may be doing something that's really nice for somebody, but you're being really nice to a person who is not at all nice to you. It's possible some people still do it. Okay, let's wrap this up. I have to decide if we're gonna have a quiz. If we don't have it on Wednesday, we have to push it back till Monday. What do you guys think? What about the end of class Wednesday? And then in the beginning of class, we will just sort of finish decompressing, or not decompressing, debriefing what you should have got from the videos. So we'll talk more about those 5 videos. We can have the quiz on Wednesday. Okay, but let's make it the end of class on Wednesday. Okay, and in the beginning of class on Wednesday, we'll talk about the remaining video stuff that we haven't talked about. And that includes public goods games. So, I mean, what will it be over? It'll be over ultimatum game, dictator game, and the fairness that goes along with that. This idea that you can almost parameterize people and how much they care about fairness, and what is the most common result in these games. It's summarized really well by that introductory paragraph in the Kammerer and Thaler paper. It could be over that, and then it could also be over the trust game, the gift exchange game, which are very similar. Did you guys get that in the videos? Gift exchange and trust are very, very similar games. In both cases, it's kind of seeing how much am I willing to reciprocate your behavior. Like, how much am I willing to, if you were nice to me, I'll be nice back. That's what we're studying in both of those games, trust game and gift exchange game. So those go together.
Gift exchange, was that the one where it was like how hard the worker would work depending on the wage given?
Yes.
Okay.
I have it here somewhere. Here's gift exchange. Yeah. So in the video, they have this worker who's flexing their muscles, and you see that's the effort. I thought that was cool. Caitlin did that. Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit at the beginning of class Wednesday. We might talk a little bit about public good games, because that's another form of cooperation that we haven't talked about yet. Sorry, this sun is in my face. Like the earth, as the months go on, the sun gets further in the south. Okay. Yes, and then we'll have quiz 4 at the end of class Wednesday, and we'll go from there. After we do this sort of, how would I summarize all this? I would say this is like pro-social behavior in games. So like simple games that test. Oh, I have this nice summary of it. Here are some examples of this, the difference between Homo economicus versus Homo socialis. And remember, real people are neither. I mean, you could say some people are like Homo economicus, some people are like Homo socialis. The truth is, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum to which how much we care about being fair and bargaining, or being cooperative, or being reciprocal, treating nice things with nice reciprocity, or being honest. We talked about honesty the previous class. Okay, I'm gonna stop share. Yeah, we can use it. I'll post it. I mean, I don't know how useful this lecture will be because it's a lot of discussion. I wasn't exactly sure what we were going to say, but